Tell us about Florence Mills,
Yeah.
Erica Buddington.
So Florence Mills, the entertainer, Blackbird, right, during the Harlem Renaissance. So she was a force, and I'm reading from, she was 5 years old. She was performing. Her family was going through some financial struggles. And as a child, she said, can I use this performance to, bring in some funds? And her family was like, perhaps. And so, I'm pulling primary sources where there's this child who's a singer and dancer and makes their way through some of the most incredible stages across the world, from England to the Harlem Renaissance. She had an all-Black review, the first all-Black review that happened, and I believe it was the Alhambra Ballroom in Harlem. And so, what broke my heart about Florence Mill's story was finding out the way that she died. And when I read about so many of, and I hate saying Harlem Renaissance because the Renaissance was national. It was happening everywhere. Chicago, yes. Detroit, right? And so, but when you read about the folks who were uplifted during this time, the art that was uplifted during this time, and you read how early they died, you start to think about the infrastructure, right? And so Florence Mills dies of tuberculosis at a very early age, speeds over from Europe after a show to get medical attention, and then ends up dying. And, I think about that same infrastructure and reading about, she didn't die that far off from the Spanish flu, right? Which is very much the last pandemic we went through. And so I think about that and how Black people were least likely to contract the Spanish flu. And a lot of theorists believe that that's because of segregation. It took longer to get to our neighborhoods, but we were most likely to die. Right. And the reason we're most likely to die, just like now, is because of the infrastructure. And here we are 100 years later, and that same infrastructure is happening, right? Where Black people are more likely to die from COVID-19. And so, as I'm doing this work and working alongside movers and shakers to bring Florence Mills to this platform so students can, see her work, not necessarily listen to her audio because none of her audio was ever saved, which breaks my heart, but read these primary sources about this petite but phenomenal artist during this time. Her funeral had 50 to 60,000 people walking all through Harlem, right? This great person who died so young and did not have to. And it was very much because of the infrastructure that still exists today. Seeing this work, it makes me think about what's happening right now. I'm getting choked up.
Yeah, we're talking with Erica Buddington, and because of you, her name will become immortalized. The African proverb, until the last person speaks your name, you'll never die. In many ways, what you're doing is bringing to life people who we didn't know, haven't heard about before. Everyone pretty much knows Langston Hughes, but today is the first time I ever heard about Florence Mills. So I want to thank you for that. And that's the work, right? That's the work for our babies, for our children, to bring to life people that they need to know. They're going to give us Harriet Tubman, they're going to give us Frederick Douglass, and, we're going to get Booker T and W.E.B. and maybe George Washington Carver, Phyllis Wheatley. You know the names, and their pictures in people's classrooms. During Black History Month, they usher out the same 8-9 names. Martin Luther King's going to be in there, maybe Malcolm X. But there's so many, other stories that build a tapestry of not just struggle around civil rights, not just, this certain kind of narrative that feeds what America needs to see in us, but shows us as whole, complete human beings, and I'm grateful for what you're doing.